And Bob Woodward, in his book Veil, presents some evidence that doesn't prove, but makes a pretty plausible case that the CIA spent a lot of money on something they're not supposed to do, interfering in American elections. They're allowed to interfere in the elections of other countries, but they're not supposed to interfere in our elections. But Woodward seems to think the evidence indicates a high probability that the CIA spent a lot of money to get Church kicked the hell out of the Senate before he did any more hearings into these brainwashing processes they were investigating.
What had he uncovered?
Well, what he uncovered was the CIA had given LSD to lots of people without their knowledge and did various head trips on them, that they had also experimented with electroshock, with brain surgery, and with varieties of things. They did some research with giving people LSD and putting them in an isolation tank with their own heartbeat, the only magnified is the only sound they could hear, to see if that would break them down to the extent that an entirely new personality could be imprinted upon them in place of their old personality. And there was a whorehouse, a hoe house, I like the southern pronunciation, a hoe house. There was a hoe house in San Francisco where they were giving LSD to all the customers and watching them through glasses to see how it would change their behavior. They gave LSD to some of their own scientists without their knowledge, and one went out a hotel window in New York, and his family sued the government after the church hearings and collected damages. They were researching marijuana, too. Even while they were telling us it was too dangerous for us, they were giving it to soldiers and sailors without their knowledge and trying various head trips on them. One of the goals was to learn how to extract information from an enemy agent that couldn't be obtained through torture or any other technique, where they had a mental shield of some sort installed by their own intelligence agency where they just couldn't reveal certain things, how to break through that trapdoor code, so to speak, and get them to spill what they weren't supposed to spill. They did a lot of research on that, but they did a lot of research, too, on how to create more than one personality, just like the Manchurian Candidate, which everybody thought was a fantasy. It was a fantasy to the extent that we don't know that anybody ever succeeded. We don't know, we can only suspect. But the CIA did a lot of research on trying to create people who would be CIA couriers and agents and do jobs for them and never remember doing it. They would have two personalities. When they come back to their ordinary personality, they'd have a vague memory. I went to Paris, I had a good time, had a wonderful love affair, and they won't remember that they were at the American embassy or Soviet embassy or something doing spy jobs. They won't remember any of that. Whether they ever succeeded, nobody knows, but they sure were trying very hard, and they had almost infinite funding.
Well, and if the
indefinite funding.
Given the power of re-imprinting that you're describing, it seems likely that they could succeed at it.
There's a book called Operation Mind Control by Walter Bellard, who has several cases. I feel that the evidence strongly suggests they succeeded. I don't want to say that it's been proven. All it can be said is they were doing a lot of research that from an ordinary human perspective looks as despicable as Dr. Mengel's research in Nazi Germany. They are mean bastards, they are.
So the antidote to this, as you were mentioning the other day, would be knowing the principles of re-imprinting already.
Yeah, having experience at re-imprinting, so when they start fucking with your head, you can fuck with their heads back.
How does this 8-circuit model tie in with Dr. Leary's ideas about life extension and space migration?
Well, to some extent, he thought the higher circuits were preparing us to deal with life extension and space migration, which he felt were inevitable results of the scientific breakthroughs that were occurring and could be predicted to continue occurring from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on into the next decade. He felt it was inevitable that there would be breakthroughs that would lead to cures for all the diseases we know of. Now we've got research on nanotechnology, some of which is aiming at building molecular computers that will run through your body. Once they're injected with a needle, they run through your body and check every cell, and every cell that's malfunctioning, they'll fix it. That seems to be indefinite life extension or possible immortality. And there's a lot of other areas of life extension research going on, and then there's the overwhelming probability that in the 21st century a lot of people are going to be moving off the planet Earth. And Leary felt the higher circuits would be much more useful after we achieved longevity and space migration.
So if you're living a very long time in a very open environment, the higher circuits are more natural modes of being.
Not only that, but the lower circuits, which are relatively mechanical, would make for more dangerous blunders and for more boredom. If you're trapped in the same timid position on the biosurvival circuit and the same emotional compulsions on the second circuit forever and the same belief system of BS on the third circuit forever, life gets more and more boring. With the higher circuits, life gets more and more interesting. Hilaritas, amor et hilaritas.
This concludes Session 3. Our program continues